As recounted above, the Virginians' wanton murder of Christian Native American captives, men, women, and children, at the Moravian town of Gnadenhutten, Ohio, or Tents of Grace, and subsequent Indian revenge-driven torture death of Colonel William Crawford close by along the Sandusky River are considered by some commentators to be the two wickedest frontier events in Eastern American history. The renegade Simon Girty apparently lived up to his infamous cruel legend, and the preparation of Crawford's death was orchestrated by none other than the then ascendant and resentful Indian agitator, Captain Pipe, who I have mentioned earlier. On the same day that Colonel Crawford was executed, at least 6 other American prisoners were taken in 2 different groups to the Shawnee town of Wappatominka on the Mad River, in present Logan County, Ohio. Major John McClelland, William Harrison, Crawford's son-in-law, and Private William Crawford, Colonel Crawford's nephew. McClelland, Harrison, and Crawford, the prisoners painted black, were made to run the gauntlet as the villagers beat them with clubs and tomahawked them to death. Their heads and limbs were stuck on poles outside the town. One scout, named John Slover, escaped by stealing a horse, apparently still naked. When the horse gave out, he ran to Fort Pitt. So while much of the War of Independence centered on the coastal areas of the U.S., the trails over the mountains and Ohio Valley into present-day Indiana to the Mississippi collected more history. Waterways also were prime movers of trade, war, and people. Frontiersmen and border settlers were a law unto themselves, a condition that carried across the country to the Pacific for more than a century after the Revolutionary War. Many prominent men openly defied the proclamation of 1763 and settled amid great danger west of the Alleghenies. George Rogers Clark, Simon Kenton, Thomas and Edward Cunningham, Daniel Boone, Colonel Crawford, Dan Morgan, and William Caldwell all originally had fought on the side of the British during Lord Dunmore's War. Simon Girty served as spy and a scout and interpreter for Dunmore with the Shawnees in that war, which, as I mentioned already, was probably triggered by the Yellow Creek massacre in 1774. At Yellow Creek, more Virginia frontiersmen, now known as Long Knives, led by Daniel Greathouse, murdered the family of Mingo warrior Johnny Logan Elrod, a son of Oneida Chief Shikellamayo. Logan's lament after the brief war was widely quoted in colonial newspapers and even in Thomas Jefferson's book, Notes on the State of Virginia. A controversy continues, though, who Logan really was and whether the lament quoted here was actually made by him. I quote,
"I appeal to any white man to say, if ever he entered Logan's cabin hungry, and he gave him not meat, if ever he came cold and naked, and he clothed him not. During the course of the last long and bloody war, Logan remained idle in his cabin, an advocate for peace. Such was my love for the whites, that my countrymen pointed as they passed and said, 'Logan is the friend of the white man.' I have even thought to live with you, but for the injuries of one man, Colonel Cresap, the last spring, in cold blood and unprovoked, murdered all the relations of Logan, not sparing even my women and children. There runs not a drop of my blood in the veins of any living creature. This has called on me for revenge. I have sought it. I have killed many. I have fully glutted my vengeance. For my country, I rejoice at the beams of peace, but do not harbor a thought that mine is the joy of fear. Logan never felt fear. He will not turn on his heel to save his life. Who is there to mourn for Logan? Not one."
The Indians were decisively defeated at the Battle of Point Pleasant on the Ohio in current West Virginia. Shawnee Chief Cornstalk had attacked Virginia militia under Colonel Andrew Lewis, hoping to halt Lewis's advance into the Ohio Valley. But Lord Dunmore, then the royal governor of Virginia, marched into the region and compelled Cornstalk to agree to a treaty, ending the war. After Cornstalk signed the Treaty of Camp Charlotte, Dunmore reportedly sent Girty to bring Logan to the treaty signing place. Logan refused. Logan apparently died a lonely alcoholic and Girty blind. Girty and Kenton, another renowned backwoodsman, were friends and stayed that way until their long knives slipped through their fingers for the last time. Kenton, too, after apparently murdering a neighbor settler, had slunk into the forest, where his reputation as an Indian fighter became legendary. And so, in the shadow of the Revolutionary War, the inflow of European settlers and slaves and disbursement of the tribes gained momentum with distinctly legal flavor. Treaties were made to be broken. Brutal reprisals for insults and murders continued on both sides of the cultural divide, natives versus pioneers. The coveted Ohio country was a vast territory between the Ohio and the Wabash Rivers, extending into the Great Lakes region, including today's western Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana. The confluence of the Monongahela River and the Allegheny River became the central point of settlement, surveying, trade, and transportation throughout the Ohio Valley.